At one point in time, the Germans did not arrest Belgian Jews. They only arrested immigrants like ourselves. When they eventually run out of immigrants, they then, of course, arrested the Belgian Jews too. But we did not know that in 1942. And this, to obtain the Belgian nationality, would seem like a lifesaver. So how do you obtain this blessed nationality? Well, one way to do it, of course, if you had an unmarried female, if she could marry a Belgian, she automatically became Belgian. So we had two unmarried females on our hand. One was my sister, who was 15 years old, and the other one was my grandmother, who was 75. Where my dad found Monsieur Dubreux, I really don't know. He was a driver for the Belgian Red Cross. And he said, I marry anyone. Have you got some money for me? He needed money for the bars every Saturday, which he attended regularly. And he said, I marry anyone you want, and I will sign a paper that I will not exercise my conjugal rights, and I will divorce whenever you guys want. How much you gonna give me? And it took us about 3 months to find out that a girl of 15 was underage, and because at that point in time we were German subjects, Austria didn't exist anymore, we needed a special permit from Berlin to have my sister marry anyone. By that time we had a paid-up groom on our hands. My grandmother married him, and she was the only one in our family that obtained the Belgian nationality, and she survived the war. Nobody bothered her. We then tried to obtain the Belgian nationality for me. I was adopted by a Belgian. She was very nice. She didn't ask for any money. She wanted to do it to help us. So I was officially adopted. My name was changed. The Belgian law says that if you lived long enough in the country and if one of your parents was a Belgian, you could apply for the nationality. And an adoptive parent is equal to a real parent. Well, this took a couple of years, but I never got it. And by the time this came about, the Belgian Jews were being arrested just the same, and the whole thing was for nothing. When the Germans saw that the Belgians would not assist them in arresting us, they asked us to come to their high command and pick up the Star of David. And I stood in line outside in order to obtain my Star of David. You had to give them your address, and they gave you the Star of David. Anybody walking the street with a newspaper or a book, you knew he was hiding his star on the street. 2 weeks later, we got a convocation to come and report to the trains, to go and work in Germany. I have to admit that half the Jewish population in Belgium by themselves went to the trains. Of course, those trains did not bring them to Germany to work, but into concentration camps, and most of those people never came back. But I can cite you the case of a young lady of about your age. She got this convocation first, and she figured if I don't go to the train, my parents might have a problem. So the family brought her with her little suitcase to the train, and of course they wasn't to go and work in Germany, but it was to, she went straight to Auschwitz, and she was never seen again. If you now didn't heed the call to go to the train, of course you now broke the law and you could get arrested even though you wore your star. That's when we went into hiding. I don't know if you know the story of Anne Frank. Just like Anne Frank, we rented a store with the shutters closed. My friend from school, his mother had a wool shop, and through her wool shop, we went into the other store. She had rented it for us, claiming that she needed more space for her merchandise. And for 1 year, we lived behind the closed shutters of a store. That went fine, but after 1 year, the landlord of the building found out that somebody was hiding on his premises, and he would not prolong the lease. So we had to move to another little house in Brussels, where we lived in a one-room apartment, which was kind of crowded. I never heard my mother complain about the change in her life. one day I was helping the landlady with the potato crop. And when I came home, a neighbor opened the door and says, "Get away from here, the Gestapo just arrested your parents." And that night, with the help of my uncle, we broke into the house. We broke the seal of the Gestapo. There was like a wall unit in the garden, and in there was a little suitcase that contained my parents' passports and some other documents and a little bit of money. And this is the suitcase I found in the garden. I still have it. I don't know if you can see it. It's just a little leather suitcase. My sister luckily wasn't home. I then managed to hide my sister in the convent school in the famous Waterloo of Napoleon. And I, with the help of the Belgian underground, was told to take this streetcar. They called them boerentram, which means the farmer's streetcar. And I went with the underground. The underground gave me instructions. You take this streetcar and you hold your suitcase in the same hand and a magazine. It was kind of a life magazine, a German type life magazine, showing all the battles and the victories of the Germans. I went to a little town called Chimay near the French border. A young man accosted me and said, "Today we can't go any further. There's a hotel room rented for you. It's paid for. If anybody asks you questions, you don't know anything." That was easy. I didn't even know where I was. Next morning he picked me up. He said, "I will get on the streetcar on the front platform. You get on the rear platform. And if you see me get off, you get off." That's how I reached a farmhouse very close to the French border. And I lived there for about a year and a half. And I had my cows to milk in the morning, and I had chores to do. And there was an old lady there with her son, who was an accountant. And one day, the village next to ours was surrounded by the Germans. Not only Jews were hiding in different farms, but the youngsters, the boys in Belgium, had to go to work in Germany. So when they didn't want to go to work in Germany, they hid on different farms, and my farm was one of them. So the Germans arrested some Belgian boys and some flyboys, some British pilots that were hidden in that area. Probably that's why they came. And I came down in the morning with my slippers, and the old lady says, "Don't go out today. The Germans surrounded the next village." So while drinking my coffee, I see a shadow through the milky glass of the door, and somebody knocked at the door. I say, "This is it." I jumped out the rear window, and I jumped this hedge, one of those big hedges that stopped the American tanks after D-Day. I tried again later on. I could never jump this hedge again, but that day I went flying over it, and I went with my slippers to the forest's edge where I saw a German patrol go down the road. I laid low till they were gone, and I went into a farmhouse of a buddy of mine and told them, "Listen, the Germans came to get me. Go get my shoes." So he took his bike and came back with my shoes. He says, "The Germans didn't come to get you. A neighbor tried to tell you not to go out today. Where you are, there's nothing. Where you live. Here, yes." So I waited till the German patrol went down the road, and I went back home. That was my adventure of that day. One day I ride my bike in the forest, and I encountered this crazy vehicle that looked like a topless vehicle. I had never seen a Jeep before. And two Americans that asked me in English, "Are there any Germans here?" I didn't understand them first. I didn't speak English, so I said, "Il n'y a pas d'Allemand ici. There are no Germans in this area." So they went.